Hi, it's Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO here in beautiful Montreal, welcoming you to another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. We're part of Fractional Pros Canada, the home for Canada's fractional community, and you can find us on Facebook. We bring you conversations about everything fractional that matters for fractional executives and businesses from coast to coast. Think of this as your go-to spot for real talk, practical wisdom, and strategies you can actually use, all without the corporate fluff and with plenty of Canadian content. Whether you're a fractional pro or a business in our great country of Canada and beyond, this conversation is for you. Grab your espresso and let's dive in. Welcome to the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. I'm your host and fractional CMO, Robert Mendelson, here in beautiful Montreal. Joining me today is Linda Kern, who is just down the road in Mississauga. Linda is a high-impact fractional sales executive dedicated to helping small and medium-sized Canadian businesses build robust sales teams and achieve guaranteed growth. We're going to talk about that. Today's Fractional Pros Canada podcast, powered by Fractional Pros Canada, the only Canadian online community for Canada's fractional executives. If you haven't already, please join us in our Facebook group. Just search for Fractional Pros Canada on Facebook. And yes, there is no cost to join our community of 500 plus members. Linda, great to have you on the Pros Pod.
Thanks, Robert. It's super fun to be here.
So we're gonna dive right in here. Your LinkedIn profile, and I imagine your other marketing materials, make a very compelling statement. You literally guarantee clients will hit sales goals. And, so you're putting skin in the game. Now, there's a lot of fractionals who are very hesitant and maybe afraid to make that kind of guarantee. So talk to us a little bit about what made you decide to offer that guarantee. How often do clients cash in on that guarantee? And how do you make sure, most importantly, that you hit those sales goals with your clients every time?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome question. And the term you use, excuse me, sorry, skin in the game is really what it's all about. I feel like if I'm going to be doing this work, then I need to put that skin in the game. And so it's really about working backwards from what the client, the company, the sales team, sales leader, depending on who I'm working with, wants to achieve. And so what is it that they're looking for? A lot of the time it's sales growth. Sometimes it's just adding to the pipeline. Sometimes it's just turning the negativity around. There's a lot of goals that people have when they're trying to have an impact on the sales team and therefore the company. But it's really a belief in myself, in my ability to turn that team around and really make a difference, hit those numbers, and make sure the numbers are realistic. I mean, we talk about it before we even start working together. We'll talk about, what they want to accomplish, what the challenges and the issues and the goals are. So, yeah, and then it's just head down, do the heavy lifting, and get the work done.
So the goals are not necessarily numbers all the time. There could be other goals.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, we want them to get sales growth. We want them to achieve their targets. That's the ultimate. But sometimes the issues are tangential to that or related to that or leading up to that. So a team I worked with last year, there was a lot of negativity amongst the team. They'd been led by a challenging business owner who, was kind of glass half empty. And this particular team just really needed support, understanding, listening. I mean, the very first meeting I had with one of the people on the team was, I'm happy where I am. I make enough money. I don't want to do any more than what I'm doing. But it's really, that takes a lot of time to build that relationship, build that trust, build that respect with those people, to turn that type of thinking around to the point where you start to actually see them doing things differently because they believe in your approach, and your respect. And so slowly but surely, and I'd say it took from probably July to October to really turn things around, but slowly but surely we started to see people buying into what we knew were the various activities that led to success. And it was very specific. There were certain specific things that they needed to do in order to achieve success. So that was a huge win, because that was changing influencing them to change their behavior in order to do those things that led to more sales.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you hit on. And for those of us who are not in the sales world, right? I'm a CMO, I'm in the marketing world. I think for anybody who's not in the sales world on a daily basis, when we hear about sales challenges, what always comes to mind is numbers, right? Oh, the sales team needs, they're not hitting their numbers, so they're going to hire a fractional sales leader, a fractional sales coach, whatever the right term is, to kind of help them hit their sales goals, which we always think is numbers. But clearly, it's not always about numbers. And I would imagine that very often the reason why a team is not hitting the numbers often has not much to do with that the product or service they're selling isn't very good, or that there aren't enough leads, etc. But the problem, that's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. But when you dig down, the problems that are really leading to not hitting those goals are more have to do with maybe who's managing the team, relationships within the team, etc. The whole company culture, top down. We've had a few guests on lately on the podcast here who talk about those human issues, right? The people issues that are, very common. We find in all departments of any business, of any organization. So it sounds like, it's kind of an eye opener to again be reminded sales is not just about numbers. There's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, it's the people are everything. I mean, nothing happens without the people being on board, and it is really, really critical that my definition of on board is that they are, listened to, understood, respected for their journey, respected for their background, their biases, how they've been led to that point, and listened, like really listening, and then understanding what they want to achieve. What do they want to achieve? Do they want to stay at the same level? Okay, well, maybe if they truly do want to stay at that same level and not add anything, then we need another salesperson, or we need to make a decision about that particular individual. Do they stay on the team? In this particular case, this individual had a high closing ratio. It's just, and we did get through. And when I stopped leading the team, I have a little notch in my belt around him saying, I miss our conversations because we had fun. I respected him. And I truly liked him. Actually, he was a really fun guy. It was just, he just had me. Why should I do more for you when you don't do anything for me? Was kind of his attitude around leadership. And so, but it's all people. It's foundational. It is the foundation on which the house is built. And then secondarily, does the organization know what success looks like from a tactics, activity, execution perspective? Has that been identified? How, if you have to achieve $1 million in sales, how many proposals do you have to put out? How much do you need prior to the proposals that clients you're talking to? And then the step before that is how many, I call them generically first meetings or discovery meetings. It's really, what are those ratios, those numbers that at the beginning can be, a little bit of a guess just based on some historical information. And everybody's will be different. But ultimately as well, so that's kind of the quantity aspect of it. There's also a quality aspect. So if I've got my ratios nailed, I know what they are, and I'm still not achieving my numbers, then we need to either adjust those numbers or turn to the quality aspect of it. So how are they engaging with prospects? What are they saying? How are they doing it? Are they asking for a next step? Are they asking for the business? Things like that.
When you step in with a new client, I would imagine that over the years, through your experience, you've seen the same kind of quick wins, low hanging fruit that there often is that you can address right away. You just sniff these out as soon as you get on site and you survey the landscape, and you immediately, these things pop out to you. What are some of those quick wins that you see, very, very often that maybe sales leaders or company execs who are listening today might be able to think about, maybe taking a look in their organizations for those?
Yeah, I'd say it all rests with the back end or the farthest end of the pipeline closest to closing. So you're looking at the things that are sitting in the proposal stage. Have you left them sitting there waiting for the client to get back to me? So when you go through each of those late stage opportunities and look at them one at a time, how long have they been in there? Did you ask for the business? Did you, if they weren't prepared to give you the business, did you solidify a next step that said something to the effect of, okay, that's fine. I understand that you're not quite ready to sign here at the moment, and you don't even have to be that direct around signing here. But when is a good time I should follow up? Okay, great. I'll follow up then. Why don't we set up a quick chat phone call in our calendars? And so it's really just going through all of those and literally closing or tossing, and as few maybes as possible. I mean, if you get a really good reason why somebody is still kind of in that maybe stage, fine, that's good. But the quick wins really are there. Yeah.
So hang on a second. So it sounds like what you're saying is that, surprisingly, not every salesperson is using the CRM, so that the CRM is reminding them, hey, check in with this prospect. It's been a week since we had our proposal meeting with them. We need to follow up and find out if it's a yes or a no. And that perhaps there are some salespeople who just aren't doing that, or maybe the CRM is broken. But you're saying you walk into an organization and there's actually just prospects, leads, hot leads that are just one little touch point away from closing, and they're just getting lost in the cracks?
Oh yeah. All the time. All the time. What they don't realize is they think it's acceptable or just what everybody else does, or just what they were taught, or what they know, to wait for the client to get back to them. So the quickest, most impactful thing an organization can do, their sales team can do, is to get a next step for every deal that's in the pipeline. And so we'll talk mostly about the late stage for this purposes of this part of the conversation. It's really about making sure when I present my proposals, there's another one right there. That's another one right there, is do not email proposals unless you don't want the business. So every proposal that you are put together needs to be presented in person if it makes sense, presented virtually, unless the client explicitly says after you've asked, no, just send it to me. And even then I say, sure, no problem. I can send it in advance. Why don't we schedule a time after you've had a chance to go through it for me to help, walk you through it and see if you have any questions. So presenting proposals gives you a chance to take questions, gives you a chance to ask for the business, gets them engaged. They're not having to figure out how you laid it out and what this means and what that means, and that kind of thing. And then everybody just goes right to the bottom line, to the price, right? I do it myself when I get proposals. So definitely presenting the proposal, but also at every step of the sales process, getting a next step, an active next step in my calendar, in their calendar. So after a good discovery meeting, you say, well, this sounds like this went really well. Why don't we schedule a meeting next week to do ABC, whatever the next step makes sense to do. Plant tour, meet your boss, meet my boss, meet my technical people. So at every stage you're doing that. A CRM reminder is great when the client says, yeah, I'm not really ready to book something right now. Why don't you follow up with me, next month or whatever. I would actually ask for a meeting for next month. I'd say, do you want to pencil something in next month? Like mid-month, what's good for you? I continue to ask very professionally. It's just a question. We're not trying to be pushy salespeople. But that's the key to the health of an opportunity, is if you can continue to get a next step. Worst case scenario, use a CRM to remind you. Now, salespeople aren't necessarily putting the reminder in, not necessarily following the reminder. I would say, on the odd occasion, the CRM might be broken, but most of the time it's the process isn't being followed.
So politely nudge. Let's go back to something you said. So there are times when a client will say, I don't want to meet, just send me the proposal. Now, anecdotally, is the close rate typically going to be lower on those clients?
So yes, a general statement is yes, the close rate will be lower. The one sort of caveat that I allow for sales teams, or I kind of let them know can happen, is you will be dealing every once in a while with a very detail-oriented person on the other end who wants to read all the facts and see all the information and the specs and digest it and think it over. If you're dealing with somebody like that, I would still ask to meet with them to present the proposal. But if they pushed, and this is me getting to know them through the sales process, and there's ways you can get to understand how people like to operate when you're working with them through the sales process. You're kind of assessing how they show up, how detailed they are, how engaged they are, how many detailed questions they ask. So I would still ask to present a proposal to a person like that. But I would accept the fact that they want to, well, send it to me first so I can go through it, because I kind of not surprised that they've said that. Even if you are surprised, you still have to send it. You can't say, sorry, we don't do that. You send it to them respectfully, but you still say, how much time do you need to go through it? And when should we get together to walk through it? And they might say a week, a couple of days, and then you still ask for the meeting. And you could still get a no. No, I'll get back to you. Okay, no problem, But you always want to ask. I always say to salespeople, we're responsible for asking. We're responsible for the process, keeping it moving forward. We are less responsible, or we're not supposed to be, or in my opinion anyway, pushy, or no, I'm sorry, you got to meet with me, or I can't send it to you. None of that. I mean, it just gives you an indicator of either their personality style or their engagement in what you're selling. So it does have a less chance of closing for sure. Because I would kind of give that sort of like a negative mark next to that opportunity, in the sense of it's chance.
Is it a bad idea in the case where a prospect says, just send me a proposal, I don't want to meet on it, or send it to me ahead of a meeting? Is it a bad idea to send the proposal but leave out the price part?
I've done that. Yeah. And in this virtual world, so in the last 5-ish years since COVID, most of my proposals are delivered online now. So I've gone from a Word document, converted to a PDF to a PowerPoint, because it keeps me succinct, it keeps bullet points, and it's really kind of how people operate anyway. I think people really like to see, it's a fairly detailed PowerPoint. I'm just replacing bullets, or sentences with bullets. But yeah, so I have done that. I've left out the price. I think it just really depends.
Depends on what? What would you?
I think I'd say it would depend on the engagement. Like, if the person is really engaged, and I know that they just need to see all the nuts and bolts and the details in there before we talk about it, because it's just kind of their style, but they've been engaged, I'll send it without the price. If the person isn't really engaged, just send me a proposal, just, send it over. Then I'm going to probably put a little less effort into it, put the price in there. If they won't give me a meeting, it's not a good sign. And so I might just, sometimes I call it just throw it over the wall, and not worry as much about it. Probably wouldn't give it a very high score in my, CRM type thing. If I don't have a CRM where I actually give everything percentages. I just I find it's a zero sum. You're either getting it or you're not. Lots of people like to factor it down, and that's okay too. I've worked many, many times in that environment, but I don't worry too much about it. I don't think of it as a really viable opportunity. Sometimes I'm surprised.
So speaking of engagement, so CEO hires you because up until now the sales team's been reporting to the CEO. CEO has been doing a great job for obvious reasons. CEO has a million other things to do, and maybe they're not great at managing a sales team. It's a very particular skill set to be really great at it. You come in and now you've got a team of salespeople who are, jaded, and they're like, the boss is throwing another consultant at us. So you're up against, the odds are stacked against you. How do you come in and get that sales team engaged and energized pretty fast so you can kind of hit the ground running as much as possible in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean, I always start with individual meetings with the people. And, I always have questions along the lines of, how long you've been doing this. I often will have a bit of a background on them, but what do you like about this job? What do you find challenging? What support do you want from me? Because really my role is to support your goals, your success. So what kind of support are you looking for? And maybe ask a little bit about, all the things that you learn about leadership are around getting to know the whole person. And so I'm careful around that because some people are really open about that and some people aren't, about, say, their personal lives and things like that. But, I want to know a little bit about them as well, and maybe not push it too much in the first. I take my time on that side of things because I want to get to know the person before I start, where'd you grow up and what were your parents like? And, what was the toughest part of your trauma of your childhood? I don't want to know that at the beginning. So that's how I start. And then I continue to show up. I continue to be curious about their success. I continue to be curious about their week, about a sales call they had, and I continue to be supportive. I'll take, if they've got an issue around something that it's, whether or not it's commissionable, and I think it should be commissionable, I'll take that up with the CEO. And, if I don't think it's commissionable, I will say so. But it's really about thinking. I like this visual of not being across the desk, even though we're across the screen, but kind of sitting next to them and supporting their success. And it takes time because everybody's barometer on when they're going to trust somebody is different. And it can take, like last year, there was one person where there was this sort of breaking point. We started in July. There was kind of a breaking point in October. And then it was just great after that. So it takes time. In the summer, I'll say summer kind of tends to slow things down because they're on vacation. I'm on vacation. It's depending on the industry, can be a slower time. And so, but it's really about it. I can't express it enough. It's foundationally about that relationship. That is, and empathy too, empathy is really important. And knowing when to push back. You can't be a wet rag in this. And I think that's a mistake I made early on because I'm a very people-oriented person. I just want to make I want to lift all the boats. And I think in the early days, I was trying too hard to be a friend. And I like to be, somebody that they feel comfortable meeting with and that they trust and that they like and respect. But sometimes you got to push back. You got to know when to push back professionally, helpful in a way that's helpful, in a way that, helps them understand why you're pushing back.
So would you, for a salesperson who is, not performing, right? They're not hitting their goals, their objectives. They're not hitting their numbers, right? So setting a sales objective as a number is more of a lagging indicator, right? And measure that at the end of the month or whatever it is. And that's when we find out that things haven't been going well that month. So what kind of leading indicators would you set up for somebody like that? And obviously they're not necessarily going to be number related, although I'd imagine there's going to be some, maybe it's going to be, number of leads in the pipeline, number of follow-ups, something like that. But talk to us about some of those leading indicators you would set up, and even on an individual basis where they might be very different from salesperson to salesperson.
Yeah, they are different. They always are different from salesperson to salesperson. I mean, there might be some commonalities, but I always work backwards from the goal. So it depends on the industry, but often, number of proposals is a good one. So you've got your target. I always think of everything, a lot of things on this sort of continuum. So for me, on the right-hand side is the goal that we've achieved. We've finished the race. What the step before that is usually proposal. There might be a step in between, proposal, after the proposal might be a negotiating and closing stage, but most of the time the proposal is negotiated and closed, in one or two steps, and they're kind of combined. The step before that is what I call generically follow-up meetings. So those are the meetings after the first meeting. Some industries might be very quick. They might go from a first meeting to a proposal. I'm always careful not to go too quickly because otherwise it becomes very transactional. So then there's that number of follow-up meetings. And then the step before that is, generically, I call it first meetings, sometimes called discovery meetings. It's the first time you engage in a, face-to-face, virtual face-to-face meeting with a prospect on looking to do business with you. And then there's even a step before that, and that's the number of times that either the number of leads you receive or the number of times you reach out to get that first meeting. So those are numbers all along the way. So that's the quantity part of the equation. The other part of the equation is the quality. So it's the application of the skills within the sales process. So first thing is next step. Are you getting it's just the first thing. Are you getting a next step? Are you keeping the sales process moving forward? Or are you falling victim to, let me get back to you? And then it's like, did you, at the proposal stage, did you ask for the business? How did you ask for the business? If you weren't able to secure the business, did you get a next meeting, like a next step to follow up, and so on? And then so you work backwards. Again, I like to work backwards because everything in sales and a lot of things is about achieving that ultimate end game of that goal.
Begin with the end in mind.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And then we're, as I was mentioning, and then we work on the skills at each stage just to make sure that there isn't anything within the application of the skills, like, are they asking good questions? Are they getting the person engaged? Which is good. Are they pitching product, throwing things at them, showing them brochures? So we want to make sure that they're being consultative. And again, it depends on the industry, because I've worked in a lot of different industries, but I'd say just about every industry I've ever worked in is a consultative industry, no matter how simple the product. You want to understand what it is that success looks like for your client, what needs they're trying to fix, problems they want to solve, goals they want to achieve. Because the key thing here is sales is a helping profession. We are helping our clients to achieve something, and we need to understand what that is.
Is it a good idea to set a goal, an objective, one of those leading indicators for a salesperson who's just not using the CRM? Is it a good way to get them to use the CRM by setting that as one of their objectives?
Yeah, that's a good question. Over the years, CRM has become less of an issue. Now, adoption of the CRM was a huge issue 10, 15 years ago, massive issue, especially with people who had done it in a paper-based way for many years. So adoption of a CRM is less of an issue now. The issue now is, and probably what you're alluding to, is using the CRM effectively and accurately, right? Like, kind of, we've all accepted the fact, even those of us that have been around a while, that we got to use these CRM things. So yeah, I did have an adoption issue with one person last year, and it's really, again, it's about them understanding how that data is used. Because now it's all integrated. Before, a CRM used to just kind of sit by itself, and the salespeople would use it, and it would give them their reminders, and it would give them a place to put their notes so they could remember what they said, and calendar things. And now they're often integrated into operations, if not exclusively. Like, most of the time, what they do will impact what someone else does. So it's even more critical. So it's really them understanding that, and baby steps. It's baby steps. It's Like if you make somebody do something, they will do it once or twice. It's not sustainable. So it's really about, again, it goes back to the people leadership. It always goes back to the people leadership and the effectiveness of it.
Let's talk about Canada. Let's talk about particular business challenges for Canadian businesses and sales challenges within those businesses. Are you seeing anything that has changed in the last 6 months or so since we've seen changes in leadership down to our neighbors in the south? What are you seeing out there, and what are your observations about where things are headed for Canadian sales organizations within Canadian businesses these days?
Yeah, I'd say it's more broadly like I attend a lot of events, I listen to a lot of speakers. I'd say I'm getting more from that than personal experience. Although I do have a couple of personal examples. So what I'm hearing is people are keeping their cash. And rightfully so. Like individuals are keeping their cash, companies are keeping their cash, and cash is king, that whole thing. So there's a nervousness about continuing to invest. I'm also hearing, never waste a good crisis. So I'm also hearing, like now's the time to invest. Things are less expensive. Like it's hard, right? It's very hard because Canada versus the US, we are so much more conservative. We don't invest enough. We don't invest in technology. And I'm obsessed with this productivity number. The Canadian productivity is down relative to the US or probably many other countries as well. I think we might have the lowest productivity in the G7. And so there are some issues globally or like within Canada broadly. I have two examples, though, myself of companies that I've spoken to this year that have all post January when Trump came in. And their response was to do nothing at the time, like to not invest in a sales leader, to actually, rather than, hey, Linda, we decided to go with the other person or we decided to go with another solution. They've both decided, based on this uncertainty, to just wait and see. So they're both still in my pipeline. They're both still opportunities that I'm working with, but there's that wait and see. And I think nothing happens till a sale is made. And so something I learned a long time ago was when the economy takes a turn, what is it that salespeople can do? What we can do is more activity. So if we had to do 20 first meetings to get 3 sales, let's do 30 or 40 first meetings to get 3 sales. So we just need to ramp up our activity. We just need to do more. And it's hard. Like it's hard because you'll get more no's or more, I don't want to meet with you, than you did when times are good. And so, but you gotta keep your nose. I say this all the time to my kids, keep your head down, keep going, keep your head down, keep going. Because that stuff, although true, can be noise that gets in, and you don't want it to get in because then that's not good.
And of course, while there are a lot of companies who are in freeze mode, wait and see mode, there's the other side of the coin, which are companies are like, well, our competitors are in wait and see mode. We're going to invest. We're going to go knock on the doors of all those prospects that they would otherwise be knocking on, but now they're not. And, maybe we'll turn this into an opportunity for us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when the markets dropped, everyone's like, it's a good time to buy. It's a good time to buy, So it takes more courage, I guess, more bravery or whatever the word would be to do that. But it's how the greats do it. They invest in the down times. They continue to, you got to watch your cash because we're not talking about these really large organizations who have a lot of security. Sometimes we're talking about a $10 million company, $50 million company, $5 million company. And that's a little that can be a little tighter that way. So, but still, it's about, being strategic. I've watched a lot of webinars on how to handle the tariff situation, and the big takeaway was have a plan and communicate your plan, because everybody's scared, right? Everybody from the CEO down to the person, or I probably should say across to the person out in the field every day doing the tough heavy lifting. And it's like, we have a plan, here's our plan, develop that plan with your key people, but have a plan, rather than sitting back with no plan.
One of the hats you wear, one of the many hats you wear, is teacher, professor. You teach sales and entrepreneurship at the college and university level. Who's your typical student? Is it the 20-year-old just getting into sales, or are these people who've been in the corporate world and maybe need a little refresher?
Yes, both. So I started I started in sales, and then I went into sales training. I was probably in sales about 5 years, and then I went into sales training in a sales training department in Chicago, and that's where I first got exposed to helping other people learn the sales profession, and that's where I really got my love of. I think I love selling, and I love the sales process, but I also love helping others succeed at it. And so I've taught corporate people many years, and every course under the sun that a sales, presentation skills, negotiating skills, sales skills, prospecting skills, everything under the sun, how to negotiate price and all that. And then about 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago, I taught at a college here in Mississauga for a few semesters, and those were students. And lucky for me, because it's a little easier when you teach the more advanced students. So in this college was a 3-year program, so I was teaching the third years, and I taught a couple programs. One was a sales course, and the other was, as you mentioned, entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is a great topic because it's something we want. It wasn't something that I have a business degree. We weren't taught that. A big message I came away with from my business degree a long time ago was entrepreneurship is hard, most companies fail, and everybody wanted to work for one of the really big companies in Canada. It's totally different today. These young people are encouraged to have their own businesses, and this entrepreneurship is an encouraging type of program. But more interestingly was teaching selling skills to people who've never done it and may never do it. And so it's really about carving out the part of the profession that makes sense. Because as a trainer, you're teaching people who can go, oh, that would have been really good last week had I known this skill when I met that client last week. Or, oh, that's a great tip for next week when I meet and present my proposal. So they're people who have context, who have experience, and who you can put into small groups and say, where can you apply this? Or where could you have applied this? With college students, they don't have that context other than, Bell Canada knocking on their house or apartment door trying to sell them, or Rogers or whatever, sell them cell services or Wi-Fi or whatever. So it was a little different. I still followed the curriculum, but I felt like a big part of the program was to teach them what the profession is and isn't, rather than actually getting out there and doing. And it doesn't mean they can't try the skill. It doesn't mean they can't try to, what they actually had to do was put together an account plan for a major account. So they all had to pick a company, a large business, real one. Now, they never engaged with the company, but they had to pick a company, and they had to put together a sales strategy from selling as if they were selling to that company. And there was templates, like the difference between, I've noticed with the college level, is they provide a lot of templates. And so the students fill out these templates and get the information and do the research. But I'd say that's the biggest difference is, we want people to learn the sales profession at the college and university level. It's just, what is it that we want them to learn? Do we want them to learn how to sell, or do we want them to appreciate what salespeople do and what the department's all about and how the department's measured and who makes a good salesperson? So it's really about thinking about that.
Your story about oh, I could have used that last week. It makes me think of, so I have an online blinds store, window blind store, which I'm not really involved in day to day, small team running that, but it makes me think whenever I tell somebody I have an online, blind store, I very often hear somebody say, oh, had I only known, I just bought blinds last month. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, well, next time, you know where to find me.
yeah.
So I'm curious if you often teachers will learn from the students over time, right? You learn something from teaching students. What have you been able to learn from teaching that you've been able to bring in to your executive fractional sales business when you go into companies to help them out?
I would say my greatest teachers are more the corporate people. Like the students, I love, people in their 20s. I love the youth. I love the energy. I love the potential, the possibility. Both my daughters are in their mid 20s. And I just love what's coming for them. And I loved that about teaching in the college environment. I'd say the thing that I learned there before I get to the corporate one is, how this generation thinks, what's important to this generation. It's more about that kind of thing. Where are they coming from? Like their lives their childhoods, their 20 somethings are so different from mine. But I learn every single day from my clients in the corporate world. Every single day I learn something. That's a better way to say that. That's a better way to do that. I hadn't thought of that. And as I mentioned, I attend events and I listen to webinars a lot. And so I learn a lot from that as well. But it's a constant learning profession. You're never done. But I also have that as a philosophy in my life. I want to learn to be a better parent of adults. I want to learn to be a better wife. Been married 32 years. I want to be a better sister, a better aunt. And every aspect of my life is like, can I continue to learn? And I love what I learned from clients on the sales and leadership side. It's constant. I'm always reading books. I just got a new book. One of my clients is a professional services firm, and a new book came out from the guy who wrote Challenger Sale, which was a big blockbuster in 2012, I think. And it just came out this month, and it's selling professional services. So when you're the person who sells the service and then delivers the service, you're a consultant. And I'm just the first few pages in, and just want to see if there's a better new way of doing something.
Since you're such a well-read person, I'm sure there's people listening who are always looking for that next. What's that one book I need to read? So of all the books you've read, if you were going to give somebody a book as a gift, what would it be? Which one would it be?
I'll tell you, it's on my shelf right there.
Okay.
My favorite sales book is New Sales Simplified by Mike Weinberg, because it is, I would say there's strategic elements to it, but it's tactical. It's like, do this, then do that. Message this, script this, don't be afraid of the phone. Like it's almost like a reference book. I've used it as a book club when I'm coaching sales leaders, and we'll take, I think it was every couple weeks. This one time I did it. We would read a chapter. I would reread the chapter. I would write my takeaways at the end of the chapter, but before this was a one-on-one. Before I gave her my takeaways, I asked her what her takeaways were, because I wanted to see what resonated with her. Is she picking up the main point of the book? And I've done it with teams as well. He has a companion piece called Sales Management Simplified. So again, Mike Weinberg. And it's the equivalent for a sales leader. Very tactical, great reference book. One chapter that always sticks out for me, that's a great sort of pick off the shelf, is what should be included in a sales team meeting. If you have your sales team meetings weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. And he's got like 15 ideas just to keep the sales. I mean, there's the fundamentals of what should be in the team meeting, but maybe there's a new product or a product that's not selling very well. Let's get that product manager in, or the developer of that product, or someone in operations, or to speak to the team. So there's really good ideas. Maybe that's one idea. Another one is maybe they need a little sales training session, like a little session on, when you're trying to get an appointment and you're on the phone, what are you saying? Okay, let's fine tune that. So it's really good ideas in those books. And those have been out about 10 years, but they're really good.
Yeah. Good ideas don't get old.
Yeah, yeah. And they're obviously LinkedIn, and there's LinkedIn has evolved, and LinkedIn's been around a long time, but it's evolved, and the use of it has evolved. So, social media, all of that has changed, but ultimately, it's still the fundamentals of what we talked about earlier, like understanding what success looks like. Like the leading, lagging indicators.
So there's a lot of fractionals listening who are not sales fractionals like myself, CMO. We got CFOs, maybe COOs, other fractional C-suite type of executives listening in. As a fractional sales leader, what do you need from other fractional leaders within an organization to make sure that everything just works as well as it can? So everybody's working together, moving in the same direction, and on the same train, so to speak.
That's good. That's a good question in that it's making me really think. I'd say no different than me starting with a new sales team is building relationships. So we all need to take the time to build relationships and to, get to know each other, sort of build those, oh, that person is like me, or that person is like-minded to his or her approach to the market. And so perhaps, Robert, something we could do, because I know the meetings can be very big, is breakouts. I've only been to one meeting so far, so maybe you're doing this, but breakouts in the ideal numbers like 4 or 5, probably 4 is the best, where maybe we have a topic, a couple of questions in the breakout. In fact, I recommend a couple of questions in the breakout where it might be, one personal, one business. So where did you grow up? And the business one might be tell the group about a success you've had in the last 12, 24 months. Something that will just get us to understand how each other ticks. And because we can't really refer each other sight unseen. We really need to know each other and develop those individual relationships. And then I'm in another non-fractional group. It's a group of just different entrepreneurs in different spaces, not all fractionals. And the system that platform that he uses puts people together for one-on-ones. And it's not very often, it's once a month. So I just got the message this morning who I've been paired with, happens to be someone I've known for a number of years, but don't know well. So he and I will have a virtual coffee for, I think it's half an hour, 45 minutes, and we'll get to know each other a bit better, and so it's sort of putting the work in to build those relationships so that we can refer each other. Referrals for us in the fractional world are really the best. I mean, we can use LinkedIn to, pick a few target people that we would love to do work with because we think that they need our fractional services, comment on what they're saying, liking what they're saying, engage with them on LinkedIn. And then we might say, hey, have you ever considered this? But it's really, we do best when we get referrals because those are the stickiest. Those are the easiest to close. They come from, a source where somebody already knows. You're referring to Linda, so, I know Robert, I trust Robert, then Linda must be good too, sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Referrals are the best from other fractionals, are the best way for fractionals to get new clients. That's just been proven over and over again. And note taken about the breakouts during our monthly virtual meetups in the Fractional Pros Canada community. I'm putting that on the board for experimenting with that soon. So thank you for that idea. If there are any business leaders who are thinking about, maybe I need to hire a fractional salesperson, what would be kind of one question that they should ask themselves that would help them answer that question, be more certain, like, is this the right thing for me to try?
I would say, do I need, maybe it's a couple questions. Do I need this expertise and do I need it full time? Like what's the complexity of my company? 10 people, 20 people, 50 people. Um, and do I want that, like, because what you get with a fractional, and I've posted on this before, is you get a very senior level of experience, and you can just go, you can just know that you're going to get a lot of years of experience, a lot of good ideas, people who are highly accountable because they're our clients. We have to be accountable to our clients. We can't just sit back and, oh, I don't feel like doing that report for the CEO. We have to be accountable. I love proactive accountability. So when I start an engagement, we always book in advance a 90-day, like, let's look at how the first 90 days went. I always like right away, day one, okay, here's our 90-day meeting. Because I need to hear things that maybe they haven't had the chance to say, they haven't had the forum to say, keep forgetting to say, because I need to hear what's working and what's not working. And I also meet with my clients weekly, just for like a quick exchange of information. But I'd say that those would be the, like, do I need that expertise and do I need it full time? And do I want that, wouldn't it be great to have that level of expertise? But that's really, I think, the big one.
What's the structure of that weekly meeting you do? Is it half an hour? Is it an hour, 45 minutes? And is there a set agenda? Are there things, that you will always cover in that meeting?
Yeah, that's a good question in that it's different depending on the style of the client. So I've had clients where they're just kind of a little more informal. The business is a little more informal, might be a little smaller, where it's really nothing more than you give me your updates, what's going on in the organization from your perspective. I'll give you my updates. I've also emailed that person that week, if I think they need to know anything right away. But for the most part, it's really, we're updating each other. With clients where maybe the organization's a little bigger and they're maybe a little more buttoned down, I'm kind of a big agenda person. I really like an agenda just to keep the discussion focused, and also I want them to know that this is going to be a good use of their time. Sometimes, like I usually book an hour. Sometimes I'll go over the hour and I'll say, hey, we're at the hour. Do you want to keep going? Can you keep going? And by the way, I'm talking to people sometimes from their cars, their trucks. The CEO is that kind of CEO. Most of the time though, they're in their office, and sometimes it finishes in half an hour because not much has happened that week, or everything's kind of humming along. And by the way, too, on top of that, I'm in the leadership team meetings. I am part of the leadership team, and that is very important to me. Even though I'm part-time, I need to be in however often the team meets. And that's part of my proposal. So the agenda is typically, though, Robert, to answer your original question, sort of your update and my update. But sometimes we're thinking we've made the decision, or we're discussing whether or not we're going to hire a sales rep. And so sometimes the discussion will be around that. There'll be a particular item. But for the most part, it's sort of updates.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what I do with my clients. I'll have a weekly touch point. It's usually lasts half an hour, but could be up to an hour. And we'll always have a scorecard, and we'll have, we also break it up into 90-day, sprints or chunks of time, however you want to call it. Everyone calls something different. And then within that, we might have some milestones we're shooting to achieve at the end of that 90 days. Some companies will call those rocks. And we just make sure that everybody is up to date on achieving those, and look for any stucks, any hurdles, any surprises, and address that. So in addition to just having a general, like, hey, what's new from your end, what's new from my end, we also have some kind of metric related scorecard that we're going to center the whole conversation around.
Yeah, and that's a good idea depending on your role. Most of the time in the leadership team meeting, we will have talked about the metrics or in the sales team meeting. So most of the time, it tends to be less around things that they can look up, Like I can look up the numbers, I can look up, but you're right about, say there's a project or an initiative. Absolutely. Like if I'm hiring somebody, this person needs to know every week the progress that I've made, like that the job description's written, that it's been posted, that I've started to have interviews, that I've narrowed it down. And so, yeah, if there's a particular project, for the most part, the metrics will have been discussed elsewhere, though, in my world. Yeah. But I'm talking about, this person, like sometimes I might say something like, this person's mother's quite sick, so they may not be available very much this week. Because salespeople are very independent. Like by nature, we've been on the road, we've been remote our whole careers. That's nothing new for us. And so it's sometimes just giving them a little grace to know that they need to take like an afternoon or a couple of afternoons. Sometimes it's things like that. But in really small companies, that stuff gets around really fast. So I will make this comment though about companies that are too small can often not afford a fractional. So they really need to think about, why do they want a fractional? Because a lot of times it's, I don't want to do this anymore. But because I've had situations in the past where companies have actually run out of money. And then that was good learning for me to go, okay, I need to make sure that there's critical mass here that can sustain this. Because I can stay, like my longest engagement is 2.5 years, and then they needed a full-time person to 6 months just to get them unstuck and on the way sort of thing.
It's kind of a know when to hold them, know when to fold them. You get a prospect who's really interested in hiring you, but as you dig into the specifics of the prospect's business a little bit more, you quickly realize they're not your ideal client. And as much as you want to take their money, so to speak, you do the right thing and you explain to them that I'm not the right person for you. You're not at the right stage.
Yeah.
And maybe what do you do in that case? Do you recommend some alternative solution to them?
Yeah, I like to do that. I don't like to leave people high and dry. But I mean, I spoke to a guy, it was definitely this calendar year, earlier in the year, January, February, maybe, whose sales of his area, the business itself was doing really well and a good size. He was looking for help with a part of their business. I can't remember the details now. The sales weren't even 200,000. So he it doesn't make any sense. Now I could give him some strategic advice. I could, have a session with him, paid or unpaid. I'm sort of wired to help, where we talk about, hey, how to get it past, 200,000 into the millions. And I think he was moving part of the business online. I think it was something like that. And that really isn't my area either. But we just both kind of agreed. I mean, I didn't even have anybody to refer him to. It's just too small. So, but yeah, I do kind of like to refer because I don't like to leave people high and dry. So yeah, that's what I try to do.
Sure. And then, when hopefully that company does get up to that level, they'll remember that you helped them out way back when, and you start building up some of that goodwill. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a big believer in that. I mean, I really I always say to people, if you know anyone in your network that just wants to talk to somebody who understands sales, I'll spend 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes with somebody any time of the day. No commitment required. If I can give one or two ideas and help somebody move ahead, it's just how I'm wired. I just like that. I like to do that. And it happens very infrequently, believe me. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, same here for marketing. I do the same thing. I think, I'm a big believer what goes around comes around, and you can't do harm by helping somebody, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, most people like to help other people, and you don't do it out of expectation that you're going to get something out of it at some point. But it's never a bad thing to put a little more good into the world and help somebody out in some way.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
All right, before we wrap up, any final thoughts or a key message you want to leave our audience with, or phrased differently, what message would you put on a billboard for millions to see?
I love that. The very first thought I have, because everything always jumps into my head so fast, is hang in there, this too shall pass. I love that expression. It has got me through some very tough times in my life. This too shall pass. I really love that expression. But I'd say, think strategically, have a strategy, turn that strategy into some tactics and a plan and execution. Kind of keep your head down and keep the faith. Have faith that you'll get there, because it's always worked out for me. Every year I'm like, a client finishes up and the next year turns over and I'm like, and I sometimes text my sister, and her husband used to say all the time, "Oh, that you're just paving way for the next really great client." And she reminds me of that via text. And I'm like, yeah, she's right, because it always has happened. So the next one's around the corner.
All right. We'll make sure to get an extra large billboard for you so we could fit all of that onto it.
Right. That was not very well crafted from a market.
No, it's fine. All right. This has been great. How can listeners connect with you?
So I have a website, the Kern Group Inc. So there's a little INC at the end, .com. Check me out on LinkedIn, just Linda Kern. And those are probably the best public ways to get a hold of me, because my website's got my email and my phone number on it, and LinkedIn is always great. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk to anybody, and to connect with anybody.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us today, Linda, on the Fractional Pros Canada podcast.
You are most welcome. It's been a lot of fun, Robert. Great to get to know you better.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. If you're a fractional professional based in Canada, we'd love to have you join us in the Fractional Pros Canada Facebook group, the home for Canada's fractional community. It's where Canadian fractional executives connect, share insights, and help each other succeed. Until next time, I'm Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO. May your impact be full-time, even if your hours are fractional.